name is Helen Nambusi, and this is my sign name. I'm going to take us through tactile communication, an introduction to tactile communication. This involves establishing contact with a person with deaf blindness, sitting or standing posture during communication, then the actual communication, which involves the hand over hand signing, then the hand shapes, bit of it, and then we shall look at some examples of tactile signs. In deaf-blind communication or tactile communication, one thing you need to remember is that as you're making contact, you need to approach the person with deaf blindness from the front. Many times I'm going to do a little bit of a demonstration. Assuming this is the person with deaf blindness, they are seated or standing and facing that side. So it is not appropriate for you to come and approach them from their back, because remember, this person cannot hear, cannot see. So when you approach them from the back, it startles them. It scares them. They don't know, they've been listening to their environment, concentrating on the environment, and then suddenly you're approaching them from the back, because you know that when you want to establish communication, you will need to tap them. So if you tap them from the back, that startles them. Now, the right or appropriate way of establishing contact or making contact with a person with deaf blindness, again, we're assuming this is the person. They're either seated or standing and facing this side. So you come, if you're at their back, you come and encircle them and then approach them from the front. When you do that, you allow them time to feel your presence, to smell your aroma, and probably they will also stretch out their hands to touch and feel this new presence. Once you've given them sufficient time, then you can tap them lightly on their hand. When they are interested in communicating back to you, they will raise their hand like this, meaning that they are ready to listen. So then you'll place your communicating hand under them. We shall look at that a little bit later. So that is the right way of approaching a person with deaf blindness. When it comes to the sitting or standing postures, there could be several. One thing we need to remember is to have face-to-face contact. It was not appropriate to communicate from their back. You can communicate at the side, that depends on how fluent both of you are, but the best way is to communicate facing each other. Because tactile communication is very tiring in terms of the strength you use, the muscles can be strained, and the concentration you need. It is appropriate that you're as comfortable as possible, as close to each other as possible. So if you're going to sit, then make sure that you're facing the person with deaf blindness closely, and you're close to them. Your knees, usually your knees, let me try to demonstrate. Let's assume these are the knees of the person with deaf blindness. So you will bring your knees and interlock them into their knees. This enables you to be close to the person, such that when you're communicating, remember you're touching their hand, they're touching yours. You are not overstretching yourself. You're not straining each other. Or you could sit with either one of you interlocking their knees into the other person's legs. the point is that try to be as comfortable as possible. Don't let your knees touch each other, because that still will cause you to keep bending over and overstretching your muscles to communicate. You will see in the video how inconveniencing it can be if you take a wrong posture, either when you're standing or seated. So at that moment, after you've established the person has identified who you are, they are ready to communicate, and you've either stood or sat comfortably, then you're ready to communicate. In communication, we have what we call the communicating hand and the listening hand. The communicating hand comes from the person giving information, and this hand will be under the hands of the listener. We're assuming that the listener is the person with deaf blindness. So that hand on top is the listening hand. When, like I said, when you're introducing yourself to the person or you're making contact with them, you've alerted them by a tap that you want to communicate to them. They will lift their hand, one of their hands, indicating that they are ready to communicate with you. So they are ready to listen. Now, you with your message, you bring your hand under. This means this person will begin exploring, the person with deaf blindness will take time to explore the hand shape that you have presented. It could be a fist, so they will want to explore what you have presented. Then give them time to internalize this message, because this is a message you're passing over as you add different movements upon it. So this is the listening hand and the communicating hand. So as conversation goes on, you will want to have a flow, a constant flow of the communication. Whoever is passing on information will have their hands under the person listening. So that means that there will be an exchange. At one time, your hands will be on top, listening to the person with deaf blindness, especially if they're giving you feedback, or their hand, the person with deaf blindness, will have their hands on top, listening to your message. So it is very important for you to keep your hands flexible. That is why it is important to adopt an appropriate sitting posture or standing posture. Because like I said, if you're too far from each other, or you're seated at the side of the person, then you will be overstretching yourselves and straining each other. Like, we shall look at some examples of the different tactile signs in the video. You will see how this person, the communicator, puts their hands under the listening hand of the person with deaf blindness, and if there is need to give feedback, then the person with deaf blindness maneuvers and changes their hands to be under the person who was communicating previously. Like we said, during communication, we want the communication to flow uninterrupted through the interchanging of the listening hand and the communicating hand. In examples, like some signs, for example, may require to be signed in space, or some are located on the body. So signs which are located on the body, it is appropriate for you to locate them on the side. The communicator locates those signs on their body, not on the body of the person with deaf blindness. So, for example, when we have a sign for father. Father requires you to touch the chin and then down your abdomen. This person, the listening hand, this is the listening hand of the person with deaf blindness, will be on top of your communicating hand, and then together you follow the sign for father. The person may want to repeat that sign to you to indicate that they've understood it or the way they've perceived it. Then they will change. Remember we said you keep interchanging the hands. Then they will each change their hands. Their hand now this time will be under, and they will place it on their own chin. It's not appropriate for you to place like that sign for father like this. You sign it on their chin. It's not appropriate. They are the ones to do it. Their communicating hand should be on their own body, not your communicating hand on the person's body. During that feedback, for example, if you're going to sign baby sign like this. So the person might give you feedback, like kind of a repeat that they've understood the sign. They will also sign baby, but this time they place the baby sign on their own body, because you placed it on your body and they felt that the sign was located on the body. And remember, those signs, you give time for the person to explore the hands, to explore the space where the sign has been located. That is how they will be able to also place it appropriately on their body. So, and remember that deafblind communication, tactile communication, is not done as fast as like sign language, because the person needs to explore the hand shape, since they're not able to see the hands. Then they identify the location and then the movement. So you allow time for the person to internalize the message. Especially for signs again that are located on the body. For you, the communicator, be free. Allow yourself to be free and feel at ease for the person to explore your body, because they will want to touch your face, they feel the hair, they feel, bits of your body. The reason they are doing that is they want to know what this is, because they are not able to see it. With your eyes, you know this is the face, this is the body, this is the chest. They don't have the eyes to see that. That's why they use their hands to explore. Once they have mastered where that sign is located, you see them that they're able to reproduce the same sign on their own. And that is when you can know that learning has taken place for that particular idea you are trying to communicate to them. So, and during that time, of course, during the communication, just like in speech, there are times you're communicating with someone and he says, okay, I understand, okay, yes. So that kind of communication is also portrayed in tactile communication. In this case, you can use a tick on your body or on their body, but the appropriate part, you can use the arm, the upper arm, or on the chest. You make a tick on their chest to indicate that either they're correct. If they are wrong, then you make a cross. Or you can use a tap with your index finger on their listening hand still to indicate that they are right or it is okay. You will see some signs that have such gestures. Once you've mastered those steps, those procedures that are basic in communication, you are now ready and able to conduct a meaningful conversation and communication with a person with deaf blindness. Thank you.